All right, Katie. Well, welcome back. This has been so much fun. So, we've been talking about, how to build a career
Mhm.
and, taking authorship and ownership of your career. So then a career though, we have to kind of start boiling this down a little bit. You have a certain role or a job or outcomes that you're responsible for producing. And then maybe the subset of that is, well, what are the skills required to be successful and be able to do that? Can you talk a little bit about skills architecture and why the firm believes that's rising in importance?
Yeah, it's been exciting as I've been talking to other CHROs and CEOs, just how, many companies are embracing kind of a shift to really focusing on skills. Skills as kind of the fundamental architecture of a talent strategy. And that is something we certainly are doing as well. And there are lots of benefits of this. One is really to create the ability to kind of capture um, kind of the value from a much broader swath of talent, right? So, we've all talked about the paper ceiling and the notion of how do you move away from screening for degrees and even years of experience to really focusing on, does this person have the skills I need? Because when you focus on, does this person have the skills I need, you open up a huge, new universe of potential wonderful talent to bring into an organization or to develop. And so that's certainly something that we're really focused on in our recruiting. We talk about moving from pedigree to potential. How do we not necessarily, screen for somebody who knows how to do a McKinsey case interview, as they would on, day one in a team room, but how do we screen for people who have the intrinsic problem solving skills and also some of the expertise and skills that we look for in other areas to kind of bring to the party.
Yeah, so let's just say that again for listeners. Potential, not pedigree. I think
Exactly.
there's such a powerful, just general idea to embrace because, as you say, it completely opens up whole new swaths of talent to access versus very narrow, although comfortable and maybe well known, pools of talent to be. Could you talk a little bit? Maybe this actually kind of even bridges a little bit, Katie, into DEI kinds of things. But when we expand the talent pool, how does that benefit an organization?
Well, one of the things that I think we're leaders on in some of the analysis we did years ago was looking at when you have a team, when you have a leadership team or whatever that has diversity in it, whether it's gender diversity, racial diversity, socioeconomic diversity, it performs better. It just performs better. And I think those results have been replicated in lots of different contexts all over the world and are quite undeniable. That when you have a mix of different people together, they get to better solutions and a more healthy organization. So we see, for example, leadership teams that have a mix of men and women will have a healthier kind of organizational dynamic, and it results in this is statistically true, results in higher financial performance. So diversity matters and it drives performance. In order to capture the benefits of diversity, you need to have an inclusive kind of work culture so that everybody can contribute to their full self. We have, just as we were talking about pedigree to potential, we used to recruit at about 500 core schools. We're now at about 1,500, and we are planning to go to 5,000. And that just gives you a sense of just the breadth of talent that's out there that we've not been accessing. And that also, going to people with different degrees and with different kinds of majors and different work experiences, et cetera. So there really is a huge benefit, I think, from a real business benefit, but it also then has the benefit of creating a more inclusive workforce in general and one that is more diverse and therefore performs better from that perspective as well.
We had Julie Elberfeld, who's a former CIO at Capital One, on sometime early last year. And one of the things that Julie said that just really stuck with me, and it's around this diversity idea, is having folks who do not come from the same background as maybe senior management that has been around for a long time, was around innovation. And so doing design for me and what I would buy but I don't necessarily look like the target audience.
Yeah.
Right. And so getting points of view, like, well, I wouldn't use it that way. Like, I would never use it that way because, in my lifestyle or, the way that I would use something like this is more like X than the way that you've designed it like Y. And it's very eye-opening because if you don't have those perspectives coming into the dialogue, you don't have the opportunity until you've actually gone to market with it and watch it flop because you weren't listening to who your actual audience is.
Yeah, I think consumer companies have, figured out that they really need to have people in their organization who understand and kind of represent, some of their customer populations. But I think in general, it's so easy to get into a groupthink kind of situation if everybody has the same background and everybody's been kind of raised to problem solve the same way and think the same way. And so there's real benefit from colliding different points of view. We used to talk, and we were very proud of this, that we had a McKinsey way of problem solving, right? It was top down, 80-20. Lots of people know what the hypothesis driven. We now teach 5 different types of problem solving. And we bring people in with different problem solving disciplines in their background, right? Designers, data scientists, technologists. I mean, all of these folks have different ways of approaching a problem. And you bring that together along with our more traditional business problem solving approach, you really get some fantastic innovative results.
Yeah. So we had the former CEO of Procter on last year. And one of the things that just really stuck in my mind that David said was that none of us is better than all of us.
Right.
And so I love what you're talking about, which is bringing like different ways of thinking about it, coming at the problem from a different angle, almost by definition lends itself to better solutions, or at least, if all I have is a hammer, I only know the one McKinsey way of solving a problem.
Right.
But there's actually a better tool for solving that kind of a problem, but I don't know about that tool because I've never been taught it.
Right.
Well, we're not actually helping the client as much as we could. So, good on McKinsey for like, hey, continue to learn yourselves and not just being, so tradition bound.
Yeah.
That we can't leave the past.
Well, and that gets back to some of the things we were talking about before, which is in that context, you really do need to have a culture of everyone's a learner and everyone's a teacher.
Yes.
And because we're all listening and learning new things, and we're all also contributing.
So back on skills, because I feel like I accidentally didn't let you fully develop that. I guess, skills acquisition, learning and development, which falls under your domain as well. And then people architecting and authoring their career of like, this is what I want to learn more about. How can you help me enhance my skills in this? Right. How much does a firm look to develop skills internally for folks versus organically acquire some of those skills?
And do you mean organically acquire?
Inorganically acquire. Like I'm going to hire outside that expertise versus I'm going to teach you that skill.
Well, it's a great question. One of the things we're doing is bringing our assessment teams together for the people who are doing recruiting outside and the people who are developing inside, because we realize that what we really want to do is always have a talent strategy that is a combination of hiring great skills that we can't develop well ourselves, right? Also building skills either by creating apprenticeship programs internally or by partnering with others to do that, right? So that we're actually creating kind of new skills that maybe aren't out in the marketplace, if you will, and also building them among colleagues who are already, operating in our organization. So it really is a mix, and I think it's always a mistake if you end up focusing only on one of those. If you don't use the full kind of talent model, if you think all you're going to do is recruit outside, or all you're going to do is lots of learning programs inside. It really is about bringing together all of those different opportunities to build skills. And one of the things, just to bring back your point about skill architecture, I think this is the thing that, we and many other organizations are, working through now, which is how do you characterize the skills that are needed? How do you make it dynamic so that as new skills are required or come up, you reward them and then codify them? And how do you create skill credentialing? And we're looking at both internal kind of skill credentialing, but also things that could be externally viable or even take advantage of external skill accreditation. And how do you do that so that the minute somebody comes in with a skill, they're tracked and you can kind of see how they can be brought in and given opportunities to take advantage of that skill. But, even if it's not in their immediate circle or their immediate team, very important for any kind of agile kind of team deployment. And then how do you actually help people give them the tools to pursue learning programs and apprenticeship and development programs so that they can build skills and explore those over time. So lots of self-directed learning, as well as, self-authoring in terms of helping choose, what are the kinds of experiences you want to have to develop new experience and new skill over time.
I love all this stuff. I want to go back to some, because I think this is pretty important. This may be more on our hybrid topic from the beginning of the conversation, but what I read is that employers struggle to evaluate the impact, like if people aren't in the office. Like,
right.
If I can see you and I know that you were here from 9 to 4, I have some notion that you were here doing work and not, walking the dog and, doing whatever else. How does the firm help a client think about what's the proper way in a modern workforce to think about evaluating performance in a hybrid or remote world?
Yeah, it's a great question. This actually was one of the things that came up at Davos a lot is about, how do we manage knowledge worker productivity? We know how to do that if somebody is, doing some, task that we can count the number of times they did the task, right? But how do you do that in a knowledge worker environment? And one of the things that came up that really resonated with me was this notion that this is the year of the manager, which is that it's really our frontline managers, whether that's McKinsey's team leaders or, whether it's a frontline manager in another context, who has a harder job than they used to and needs to bring kind of some new skills and new thinking to how they manage teams to make sure that the output and the quality of those teams is commensurate with the expected work that's going in. And measuring people's productivity by just watching them in the office is actually not all that great a measure. So, we may have lost that for workers, who are working remotely from home, but it wasn't a great way to measure productivity anyway. It was really just a measure of face time and I guess of focus. And there've been long debates about whether people at home are more productive, less productive, et cetera. And the answer is, it depends. And so, how do we teach our managers to be better at thinking about what the objectives are, what the outcomes are that we're looking for? What does a work plan look like? How are people clear about what they should be accomplishing? How do they stay in touch about what's going slower, what's going faster? How can we work together better? And how do we get people really motivated about really seeing, the outcome of their work and being proud of that and having, kind of an inherent motivation to drive, really great outcomes, which I think people want to, as we talked about what motivates people, that motivates people. But sometimes we make it so difficult to see kind of what you're plugging away on, how does this actually lead to something that's meaningful? And so it really is, I think, incumbent on an organization, but particularly on our frontline managers and supervisors to really help their teams bring this to life and to help manage their teams in an effective way. I think there's certainly efforts also to define productivity and try to create metrics, et cetera. But when I think about where I think that the biggest kind of opportunity is, it is in leadership and management, learning and skill development.
Well, I think you just said the magic word, which is leadership, right? Which for me is different than managing. Managing is sort of like, here's tasks that must be done this way by this time at this cost or whatever, versus I think, again, that's sort of zooming out. And this is a human being who has aspirations, career goals, wants to be contributing at a high level, wants to develop mastery at something. Right. How are we helping them do those things? And it's kind of the Zig Ziglar. If you give other people what they want, you'll get what you want.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's both set of skills, but it really is, I think we all have the experience of When we get this right, teams surprise us positively with, what they are able to achieve.
Yeah. So just trying to be mindful of the time, because there's a couple things I do want to ask you. First question is, what career advice would you give 28-year-old Katy? So I know it's only been a couple of years, but what career advice would you give 28-year-old
Just
Katy?
a couple of years ago. So a couple of things. One is to be more comfortable with the notion that, life is long, the journey's long. You don't have to solve for everything, immediately. I was always so anxious about whether I was making the right decision, the right next decision. Was this the right choice for me? Was I doing well enough? Was I working in the right way? And, I think if you look over a longer time horizon, you give yourself more flexibility to achieve your goals and to be more flexible to opportunities that present themselves. When I look back at my career, it is a really interesting combination of long-term passions, that I've had from, high school days, and opportunities that I would have never expected. I would never have expected to be in the role I'm in now. And I absolutely love it. And it connects to long-term passions and long-term interests that I've had. So I wish that at age 28, and I would tell 28-year-olds to be more patient about letting things unfold, to taking a longer view of not trying to solve for everything kind of, in the immediate term.
You talked about like you're kind of feeling pressure to get like every little decision right. As a woman, did you feel additional pressure in that regard, maybe compared to a male colleague?
I think I'm not sure about more pressure, if you will. I think I just had a very high kind of achiever or kind of, mindset, which certainly a lot of men have also. I think what I wish that I'd known at 28 was that my authentic style would be successful, and that I didn't need to try to be something that I'm not, try to be someone I'm not. I didn't need to find somebody, often we say, oh, if we can't see someone who's just like me, then we can't see how we'd be successful. And I ended up finding inspiration from lots of mentors, most of them, frankly, men, some women, none of whom were exactly like me, none of whom who operated like me or had my life, but pulled kind of different qualities from each of them, kind of together. And so I think, I wish that I realized that what I've found now is the more I am kind of just who I am, not trying to be more serious or, or more something, the more successful I've been, the more I've just kind of, been who I am. And I wish I'd known that earlier.
So I could probably ask you a few more questions, but I actually kind of want to end on that because that really resonates with me, that I can be successful being myself, and that I don't need to pretend and try and be someone else. We teach, this is my inner McKinsey, but we teach the 4 C's to our clients, which is convictions. Like, who are you really? What do you truly believe? Who are you really? What are you really about? Leads to clarity. Because now I'm not trying to guess the right answer. What does Katy want me to say? Like, what do my parents want me to be? What is the Wall Street Journal telling me I need to do next? But like, what's right for me in my life? And so what clarity does is tells me what to say no to. As much as it tells me what to say yes to, it provides me a framework of what to say no to. That's not that it's wrong or it's bad. It's just not the right fit for me for whatever reason. And when we've got that clarity that's grounded in convictions, it leads to the 3rd C, which is confidence, right? And when we're confident, we can excel. And when we're confident, we sit up straighter, our eyes are more open, we modulate differently. And the beautiful thing, and it sounds like you've really experienced this, is when you've got that appropriate level of confidence and you're doing your job well because you're aligning yourself with things that you can do well, it's contagious. And that's where leaders really start to emerge, right? But it's all kind of grounded back in, and this is why just what you said just so resonates with me, that you learn that you could be very successful being you. And I think that's such a great life lesson. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, this has been a pleasure.
No, likewise. Obviously, the firm puts out a ton of thought leadership and quality things. Where can people go to learn more and maybe tap into some of the firm's leadership?
Well, McKinsey.com has a wealth of our research and articles and information about every possible topic. And what we provided you here is the specific area where you can see all of our work on people and organizational performance topics. So awesome. Topics about hybrid and virtual work and the Great Resignation, the Great Renegotiation, all of those things you can read about there.
Yeah, well, and again, the firm just puts out world-class content, and it's there for the taking. So I would just really encourage people to do that. But Katy, I am just so appreciative of our time together. Thank you. It's been great to get to know you, and I can see why you've done very well. You're equal parts very nice, genuine, authentic, wicked smart. You put that together. That sounds pretty successful. So thank you.
Very kind of you to say. Thank you, Bob.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming up. And again, we would encourage you to check out all the great content at McKinsey as well as career.club. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.